Señoras y señores, what is going on? Happy Monday to all. Welcome to a new week. It is Monday, September 18th, 2023. And ladies and gentlemen, it is another edition of Citywide Special. Grab your drink, grab your whatever you want to drink, grab your vibes, grab whatever you guys want to talk about here today. We have a bunch of stuff to talk about, obviously, with the Phillies and the Union getting back from action. No Eagles football over the weekend. We got to sit back and relax, watch his league kind of does his thing. And, of course, watch a little college footy, watch the Phillies and the Union this weekend as well. We'll look at our thoughts here on Monday afternoon now as we head into week number 3 for the Birds and we gear up for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but we'll look at some of the action. We'll have Dylan Davis coming here in a couple minutes, and then, of course, we'll have Jose Nunez from all across the pitch. He'll be coming in at 3:30. He's going to help us break down this upcoming matchup here. Saturday's matchup against Cincinnati. That was a big one. We're going to talk about that one as well. But what's going on? We got Facebook. We're live on YouTube. We're live on Twitter right now. Comment section is open, guys. So drop your comments, questions, and concerns. Eagles, Phillies, Union, whatever it may be, please drop it in the comment section. We're live on TikTok. What is going on? I appreciate you guys coming on in here. Tap that screen away. Let's get some more fans in the building. And TikTok, you guys are alive as well for comments. I fucked up here today. I was rushing, and I completely forgot to put a poll out. I'm just going to ask you guys straight up. So pretty much the thought I had for today's poll was I just hear a lot of concerns right now in Philadelphia with some of these teams. With the Union, with the form of this team, obviously drawing against Cincinnati, a lot left to be desired. We'll talk more about that. Definitely some concerns about the form. The Phillies, not an easy stretch going down the line here as we gear towards the end of baseball season. September, obviously it's the end of it. So some concerns. Are you concerned about the Phillies with their form? With the Eagles, I don't know how much concern there should be. Eagles, one of the last undefeated teams in the NFL. But obviously after their first two performances wasn't as clean as many would expected it to be. So there are definitely some concerns here with the Eagles. Or anything else you may be concerned about? You may just still worried about the Sixers. I'm curious about that. You worried about the Flyers? We haven't talked Flyers in a while, man. We had some development camp stuff here today, which was a lot of fun. But let's get Citywide Special underway. So today, ladies and gentlemen, our Citywide Special is brought to us by our shot of the day. We're sticking to, we'll bring something different tomorrow. We're sticking to El Blanco, El Aguardiente del Valle, sin azúcar, without sugar. This is going to be the shot of today. And then the beer of today, I'm not going to lie to you, I had to make a run here today because your boy did some damage on his beer collection this past Saturday. So, and Friday. We'll talk about that in a second. But today's beer choice, we have the Brotherly Love Hazy IPA from our friends over at Victory Beer. I'm excited to try this one. Obviously, I like the cover as well. You obviously have the Liberty Bell covered in the hops. That's pretty cool. So it's a 6%er. So I'm intrigued. Hazy IPAs, so I'm expecting something a little bit heavy. These are probably ones that I can only do like one and dones, right? But it's we keep it Philly friendly. Keep it Philly friendly. And of course, everyone's favorite time. There you go. There you go, YouTube. There you go, TikTok. Get the motorboat in. Salute, everyone. Oh, it's so good. So good. Yeah, so the reason why we're depleted of beer and seltzers here today, over the weekend, if you guys didn't see or hear, our boy Scotty Talks Sports, got married. Our boy got married. So him and his lovely now wife Alexis got married. Dylan and I of DSM Media we were there for the wedding. It was pretty dope, right in Philadelphia. It was so dope, just like the fact that still Scotty's and Dylan are people that I met through content creation, through the internet, and being able to be a part of that was freaking dope to see as well. So shouts out to now the Pierres, Scotty and Alexis. So it was really, really dope. So that's why we were pretty depleted. So that's why we got today the Brotherly Love Hazy IPA. But if you guys haven't already, please send some of your congratulations to our boy Scotty. Make sure you guys follow him, Scotty Drown, on Twitter and everything else. But without further ado, let's talk a little. Let's talk a little of that wedding. Let's talk a little bit about the weekend action that was. Please welcome on in from DSM Media, Dylan Davis. Dylan, my man, how you feeling?
What's going on, brother? Long time no see, right?
Seriously, man. Seriously, how'd you
camera fixed
weekend?
What's up?
How'd you recover after this past weekend?
I was chilling, dude. I was chilling. Not too bad. Didn't do too much Saturday. And then yesterday, obviously, sat my ass down on the couch for about 12 hours and just watched football all day. So, not too bad today.
I like that, man. I like that. Yeah, definitely Saturday needed some recovery. I did go out dancing Saturday night. So that had to happen. But yeah, man, we're good to go, man. We're good for Monday. I'm so excited here to talk about what's been going on with these sports, man. I want to start off real quick, just looking at some of these score lines yesterday around the NFL. Some interesting score lines. Ravens beat the Bengals 27-24. A little concern over in Cincy. Seattle beats the Lions in overtime 37-31. Colts beat the Texans 31-20. Bucks, we'll talk about that in a second. They beat the Bears 27-17. Chiefs in the ex-Eagles coach derby, as I'm going to call this one. Andy versus Doug. Andy gets the last laugh again over the Jags, 17-9. The Falcons beat the Packers 25-24. Bills over Raiders 38-10. Titans over Chargers in overtime 27-24. The Herberites, as I call them, were not happy after that one.
No, they were not.
Rams lose to the Niners. The gambling community not happy with that one. The Giants and the Cardinals, JG, thank God you're out of Philadelphia. 31-20 comeback victory for the Giants. The Cowboys, they're the Super Bowl favorites. 30-10 over the Jets. Commanders beat the Broncos 35-33. Dolphins over the Patriots 24-17. Obviously, we have two tonight. Saints over Panthers and Browns over Steelers. So that has to be played. But real quick, Dylan, we just rounded up some of those score lines from yesterday. What really stood out to you over Sunday's action, man?
The first game you talked about, obviously the Cincinnati versus Baltimore game, man. It's 2 weeks. You can't, overreact too much. But Joe Burrow, obviously coming off the injury in training camp, gets paid right before the regular season. Said he either strained that calf or did something to it, re-aggravated it after yesterday's ball game. But watching that Bengals offense, dude, it hasn't been a lot of fun at all through the first 2 weeks. Obviously, we know the numbers. Week 1, they sat, Joe Burrow and their starters halfway through the fourth quarter and kind of waved the white flag there. But when you're watching this team, man, it's not the Cincinnati offense of the past. There's nothing vertical. There's nothing being pushed down the field. They're not running the ball with success with Joe Mixon behind that offensive line. And then everything from what I watched yesterday, anytime they really had the ball, man, was check down to Joe Mixon, short out route to Jamar Chase, and him and Burrow were not on the same page a couple of times. And this is a Ravens defense who was on the road. The game was in Cincinnati, obviously. This is a Ravens defense that was missing Marcus Williams and missing Marlon Humphrey yesterday. So the fact that the Bengals were not able to take advantage of that secondary, that banged up Ravens secondary, was very not very concerning, but kind of concerning 2 weeks in when you start 0-2 and you lose that divisional game, right? You lose that divisional game to the Ravens, who are now 2-0 atop of the AFC North. So seeing that with Cincinnati was concerning. You mentioned the Giants and the Jonathan Gannon game. Fortunately for me, that was a roller coaster of a game because I laid the Giants as part of my 405 slate. And when they were down 20-0 and 28-7, I kind of just chalked it up and sat back and said, well, this game's over. And fortunately for me, it wasn't. So obviously that watching Jonathan Gannon crumble like that was kind of bittersweet because it was at the hands of the New York Giants. But yeah, man, a lot of interesting stuff. The shock that Stafford and the Rams were able to make that game competitive against the 49ers, hung in there for most of the four quarters.
And Levi Stadium South, man.
Yeah,
that was bad, man. That
crowd
was awesome.
It was pretty crazy, but it was a pretty good day of football. Pretty weird.
We have to ask as well, because obviously the Cowboys are back to back. They thrashed the city of New York, right? So how legit are these Cowboys?
All right, listen, I'm going to give credit where credit's due because we would be hypocrites to sit here as Eagles fans after going 2-0, after kind of a sluggish start through the first 2 weeks with some concerns of our own and say, well, the Eagles are sleepwalking their way through the first few games and they still came away with wins, but then kind of knocked the Cowboys for playing the Giants and Zach Wilson yesterday, right? So you have to give credit where it's due. That defense is legit. It looks legit. Micah Parsons is not making a case for Defensive Player of the Year. He's trying to make a case for MVP through the first 2 weeks of the season. We know that they went out and got Stephon Gilmore to pair up with Trevon Diggs. Their secondary looks better. That defense looks good, albeit against Daniel Jones and Zach Wilson. But I was more surprised by their offense yesterday. And the fact that Dak Prescott was 31 of 38 or something like that against a New York Jets defense who I really anticipated to keep that game close. And I mean, I guess they did, right? It was 18-10. It was a one possession game in the second half. So it wasn't so far out of reach, but the fact that Dallas was able to put up over 30, the fact that Dak only had 7 incompletions, didn't turn the ball over. He looked good yesterday. They're playing at a very high level. They're playing cleaner football than the Eagles are through the first 2 weeks. But I do love that we've reached a part of our yearly Cowboys cycle of we're kind of slightly to the right of the clock where they're legit. They're the best team in the NFC, and give it about 6 to 8 weeks, and we'll be down here right at the 6 p.m. slot where it'll be same old Cowboys getting in the way.
No, I mean, like I'm with you. Like it is still really early on everything. Like even your point on the Bengals as well. But
right,
I think what the Cowboys have, like they'll probably be there towards the end simply because of two things that they do well, and that really helps, with winning, and that's running the ball and playing defense. Those are things that they did well. Yesterday they ran over. I think they rushed over for 200 yards, and so that makes things easier for Dak Prescott when you have that running game. And you got a defense that can shut other offenses out. And
they were also missing Brandon Cooks yesterday too, dude.
That's important too. Not all their weapons here. Jason, not buying it. Cowboys still won't make the Super Bowl or win playoff games.
I agree. I'm not bought into them, but you do have to at least give credit for what they've done so far.
And even if like the Eagles still win the division, like the Cowboys have a really good shot of still making that wild card. I feel like the NFC in as a whole is not that strong this year.
No, it's not.
So they definitely should be able to make it. But it is interesting, and we always enjoy Cowboys fans beating that chest hard in September.
Yeah,
we still got a ways to go.
I will say this for the rest of the NFL slate. Another team that was beating their chest hard, the Detroit Lions. That was embarrassing yesterday, man. To go out on the road and beat the Kansas City Chiefs in the opener, I should say.
Right.
And CJ Gardner-Johnson, getting everybody to wear their blue ski masks to Ford Field and everything like that. And you come out and lose to a Seattle Seahawks team who are expected to be a playoff team this year, but got thumped at home in week 1 to Matt Stafford and the LA Rams, right? So to come out and lose that game in overtime the way they did, giving up 37, 38 points against Geno Smith and the Seahawks, that was embarrassing.
It's a week-to-week league, and that's what everyone needs to understand. Even with our own birds, everything looks different. Consistency is always the key, and the Eagles were pretty consistent last year. Dylan, I want to get your vibe. I want to get your feel on this Eagles team right now. Obviously, through 2-0, we saw the whole league yesterday, essentially. There's a couple of things to keep in mind. I think a lot of people are still a little iffy about the offense and Jalen Hurts' form, Brian Johnson's play calling, and defense. There are some legitimate injuries here as well. How are you feeling after week 2?
Yeah, I mean, you and I talked on here after the Patriots game and kind of spoke on the fact that you're going to have to find a way to win these ugly games. There's going to be, struggles and concerns and ugly parts of this schedule. And the fact that you can come out with a win in that column is huge. The concerns, they're real, I guess. But I can't pinpoint what's wrong with this offense right now. Some of it has to do with the play calling and Brian Johnson and Nick Sirianni. Some of it has to do with Jalen Hurts. Dude, through 2 weeks, he's not seeing the field well at all. That pick he threw against Minnesota, I have no idea what he read, what he was looking at, man. That he stared that linebacker in his eyes before releasing that ball and ultimately gave it away around midfield. So the concerns are definitely real, but you just have to have the confidence that this team is fine, right? They finally put their foot in the ground on Thursday night against Minnesota and did the one thing they've done well through all the ups and downs over the last 2 years, and that's pound the rock. And somehow DeAndre Swift, it took a Kenneth Gainwell injury to get DeAndre Swift the ball, and he's third in the NFL in rushing yards through 2 weeks now, all because of that Thursday night performance. The vibe is, it's weird. It's not what we expected. I guess we kind of expected this team to come out the gates high flying, ready to go, and it hasn't looked like that. But the fact that they're still 2-0 to start this year, no matter how sluggish, is the most important thing.
I think that's more of a sign of just their character on this team. These guys are winners. I know they haven't really won that big trophy just yet. Well, most of you guys haven't won that big trophy, but you could still see the character because, you play against two scrappy type of teams, and obviously Minnesota was hungry as well, and New England was a scrappy bunch. They still found a way to get that job done. And, it's so funny, dude. Every single time we got this back, that it's just noticeable that you should give them some more carries. I'm looking at the Eric Blunts in the past. I'm looking at Jordan Howard in the past as well, and DeAndre Swift. You got to give him the ball. He's that dangerous, especially in open space. He can break some big runs, but you put anyone.
That's a concerning part as well, man, because it's it goes back to what they were trying to push in training camp. And we as fans don't get to see the day-to-day, every practice and the work they put in. And you would think that these football minds know, right? They're seeing something with Kenneth Gainwell that we don't see and whatever. And then you watch what transpired on Thursday night, and it's no, it's DeAndre Swift, if healthy, if on the field, I'm not over exaggerating, a top 10, top 12 running back in this league when healthy. He's that explosive. He's that big of a playmaker, both with his hands and out of the backfield. And you saw that on display Thursday night. I just don't get what they were trying to push, the narrative coming out of training camp that Kenny G's our guy. He's the lead back. He gets 14 carries against the Patriots. Swift gets one reception, whatever it was.
Yeah.
I don't get how the minds in that building put that on display and thought that was the right direction to go.
Yeah, no, I mean, I going forward, I think it does need to be somewhat of a running back by committee. And maybe my mind has changed about how many snaps each person gets because, granted, it was one game by Penny, but it really didn't see much from him for me to think that he should be getting more carries. But we talked about before, there's so many weapons on this offense that even if it's on the ground game or even if it's through the air, there's going to be someone that's going to be highlighted. This week, DeAndre Swift just went off, and there was no way you're not going to give him that ball, but it's going to be different every single week. So
I agree. There's definitely a spot for Kenneth Gainwell out of this backfield. There's still a spot for Rashad Penny from the time to time. But to watch what happened on Thursday night, it should be no different. It should
Right.
be DeAndre Swift's ball, and the other guys get mixed in to spell him throughout the course of a game. He is RB1. That should be solidified after Thursday night. And if it's not, and I get Kenneth Gainwell for 16 carries on Monday night, and he has 16 carries for 42 yards, and DeAndre Swift's touched the ball 4 times, I might lose my mind. But I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. A couple quick things here.
Yeah.
Some news and notes here today. Avonte Maddox, torn pec, more than likely done
Yeah.
for the season. Again, injuries traveling with this guy. You really feel for the dude. Again, getting hurt here. The Eagles did sign a punter, Braden Mann. That does mean Sipas's time may have come to an end. They
Yeah, he's
did
gone.
release him. So Brandon Mann, it's his job to lose now. And then, of course, Buda Baker was inactive yesterday.
Yeah.
And of course, that sign got pushed out here in Philly hard.
Yeah.
It does seem like the deal from what I saw earlier, deal between the Eagles and the Cardinals is off the table. But I mean, Howie being Howie, you can't consider that being out of the picture here, man. But I guess let's start with that secondary because I'm a little bit concerned a little bit, and Evans did. I don't need a solid bounce back game considering what he did against the Patriots. What's his name? Goodrich. I don't feel comfortable there. Yeah, I don't feel comfortable him at the slot. So obviously, injuries hurting this team a little bit, but kind of you're just on Maddox and maybe Buda Baker possibility.
Yeah, I mean the Buda thing is obviously I don't want to call it a pipe dream because it's not necessarily out of the realm of possibility when, like you said, when it comes to Howie Roseman getting things done. But it does just seem like there's a lot more noise and a lot more smoke from the Philadelphia side of things, the intrigue from the fans and a need right for the Eagles secondary compared to what's being put out there on the Arizona side of things. Especially when you have that maybe fractured relationship with Arizona's head coach and Jonathan Gannon. However, they truly departed. You've heard all different kinds of stories about from Gannon's point of view and the Eagles' point of view. So who knows if a deal would even be able to get done there, what the asking price would be for Buda Baker. But the fact that, dude, the Cardinals are openly tanking. Like literally openly tanking, man. And I know they gave the Giants quite the scare in the first half yesterday, but losing that game just tells you everything you need to know. They're going after Caleb Williams in next year's draft. So I don't know why Buda Baker wouldn't want to. Like, I know that he had his issues in the offseason and wanted to get out, but then he signs the whatever the case is. It's almost a pipe dream for me. Mario Goodrich, I am not comfortable with in the slot at all. And it brings up a couple concerns, right? Well, James Bradbury, obviously, hopefully clears concussion protocol shortly. He should be able to go Monday night across from Darius Slay. Your outside's fine, but then what happens in the slot? Because that's where Avonte Maddox was so desperately needed. And yeah, it's simple to just look down the depth chart and go, oh, well, you have guys like Josh Jobe and Eli Ricks and Kelly Ringo. Well, if they're not slot corners, if they're not comfortable playing the slot the way that Mario Goodrich might be to this team, he's going to get the nod at the nickel. And that worries the hell out of me moving forward, man, because he got picked on Thursday night when he was out on the field.
Yeah, man. We're going to have to see what happens here, man, but I definitely does not make you feel good whatsoever. No. Buda Baker, yeah, he's the Chad Ochocinco type. I always bring up the story because I remember when Chad Ochocinco was playing, man. That was the one player, dude, I begged so hard for the Eagles to go get as a kid, but it never happened. So I was compared to that. But yes, Jason, no hat. My maroon Phillies hat that I was planning to wear today is missing. And I've been literally stripping my house down trying to find this hat because Jason knows my hats, those are my babies. Me bebes, for sure, man. Is Baker that good of a QB for the Bucs? I think he's fine. They're playing well as a team.
Yeah. Yeah, somehow. I mean, I don't know. The Minnesota win was shocking week 1, obviously.
We don't even know who the Bears are right now either.
Yeah, the Bears are a train wreck. Justin Fields has been sacked 9 times with 4+ seconds having transpired. So he holds the ball way too long. That offense is a mess. Coaching staff's a mess, but it's a good win. It's a good start for Tampa Bay. Mike Evans still disgruntled, but still putting up big numbers. But no, I don't think you'll see that Baker Mayfield on Monday night against the Eagles.
Yeah, well, yeah, for sure, man. Let's move real quick to the Phils. Before we get into the action of the weekend, I just wanted to say, hearing the news late last night about Charlie Manuel was huge. If you guys didn't know, he did suffer a stroke. Seemed to be pretty serious. He was in critical condition, but it does seem like he will be okay. So, keep knocking on wood, keep him in his prayers, man, dude. That's not one news that we wanted to wake up here today, so thank God. But we'll definitely be keeping Charlie Manuel and his family in our prayers here. But 2-3 against St. Louis. They did lose yesterday. Bullpen was a little bit of a concern here, man. So let's start off with that bullpen because it's just so I'm having a little bit of a dilemma myself here because guys like Hoffman, guys like Covey look good right now. But playoff time, a guy like Seranthony Dominguez, a guy like Jose Alvarado, a guy like Gregory Soto, I feel like their potential is lights out come playoffs. I don't really know what I'm going to get from Hoffman or Covey in the playoffs, man. Dude, like this bullpen, this team in general like feels like a wait and see type of situation. But like with this bullpen, what do we do in these critical innings, bro?
Yeah, it's a concern, right? It's a worry right now, especially that they certainly have a Seranthony Dominguez issue at the moment. And now whether he can figure that out over the next 2 to 3 weeks or not, is TBD. But Seranthony Dominguez, it feels like every time he comes into a ball game where the Phillies just took a 1-run lead and they came from behind, or they tied the game up the previous inning and it's the 7th or the 8th, it feels like Seranthony is giving up at least a run or two in that inning, and the Phillies lose, a la yesterday afternoon. So that's a concern. I actually, for some reason, trust Jeff Hoffman. I don't trust Dylan Covey. Throw Dylan Covey out the window. Just crumple that idea up, put him to the side. He will not pitch in the postseason. I, for some reason, think I can trust Jeff Hoffman. I know we haven't seen it. But to be fair, man, we've only seen Seranthony Dominguez in one playoff run last year. We've seen Jose Alvarado in one playoff run last year. Yordan Alvarez writes itself. Gregory Soto came over from the Tigers. He's now, so these guys who, yes, the upside of them compared to what Jeff Hoffman seems higher, seems more lights out, but they don't have great long playoff run success in them, more so than the guys we haven't seen at all. So the bullpen is definitely something that you're going to have to keep an eye on. But it's why it's so important to have your starters get into the sixth, get through 6 innings, which, again, you have an Aaron Nola issue. The list goes on and on, man. They got to hit their stride over the next week or two.
Even, the starters are concerned too because, I mean, Aaron Nola this year, like, I really haven't felt any inspiration from any one of his starts this year, man. Like, that's such a concern. And, like, what do you – so, like, after Wheeler, right, dude, Nola – Walker, I mean, Christopher Sanchez makes you feel a little bit better, but that's still like an unknown as a piece there. Ranger Suarez is like the only real consistent one, but like, dude, arms in general are a big question mark right now.
They're scary because it's weird, man. They're so deep. You make the trade for Lorenzen, you have the 6-man rotation right now, and at times it makes you feel great. At times, this starting rotation from the middle of July through August had like the 2nd best starting ERA in the league. They have moments where this rotation is locked down. But then you get on runs where Taiwan can't get through the 5th. Nola blows a lead. Sanchez gives up whatever the case may be, or Lorenzen gives up 6 or 7. It hasn't put itself together yet. I shout out to Hunter Brody, man. I saw a clip of his this morning. And it's 100% a fact. This Aaron Nola thing, Parcero, he's not going to work his way through it this year. I don't trust him one single inch come this postseason run. Like, I don't think this is a thing where you just got to keep letting him push through it and work through it. And hopefully, that 4-seamer, get some run on it come postseason time and he's good to go. I don't think he's fixing himself this year. I think it's so far up here. Because he knew he took a gamble on himself. He turned down Dave Dombrowski's offer. I'm going to bet on myself. I'm going to have a career year. And he shot himself in the foot. And now he's sitting back like, uh-oh. And he might not get the payday he was expecting. So Zach Wheeler's your ace. I would throw Ranger Suarez second in this playoff rotation, man.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's really where you have to go because, I mean, you're not trusting the other guys. It's just straight up.
All right now, and I know everyone's Christopher Sanchez.
Yeah, what do you think about that as a rotation?
I mean, maybe there's something there. But I would still take the risk on a guy like Taiwan. I don't know, man. Maybe I'm a clown. Maybe I should be bought into Christopher Sanchez. I'm not trusting Christopher Sanchez against the Braves come postseason time. I'm not doing it.
Yeah, man. It's definitely going to be a struggle, man. Of all the South America smiles at the end of the day, Ranger being number 2. That
Yeah,
is
man.
right, Jose. That is right, my man. Are you worried at all about the wild card race at all, man? Cubs.
No, I mean, the
But no.
Phillies have shot themselves in the foot time and time again. I believe they've lost 10 of their last 17 or 18 games, but meanwhile, they still have a four game lead in the loss column over the Chicago Cubs right now because they just got swept by the Diamondbacks. I'm not worried about it. Now, again, you get the Braves on the road for 3. If you somehow got swept here, things could turn pretty quickly. But the last thing that I find interesting about this Phillies club is everyone's kind of freaking out at the moment, and talking about how they're getting cold at the wrong time. Ladies and gentlemen, they were just as ice cold this time last year.
Literally,
It
man.
took them until the final series of the season to clinch the 3rd wild card spot. They were not playing good ball at this point in the year last year, and then they got hot in the postseason. So, yeah, you would like to see them start to heat up in the next week or so and really hit their stride come October. But it's also not the end of the world
Right.
if they struggle and then still get the first wild card spot.
This is what I'm concerned about is because, like, dude, you know how hard it is for lightning to strike twice?
Yeah, well, that's the issue. I mean, and you watch a team like the Braves, you watch a team like the Dodgers do what they've done all regular season.
Yeah.
And to be fair, like we do this with the Dodgers almost every year, right? They make
Right.
big splashes at the deadline. They have the lineup, they have the bullpen, and they win 100+ games, and they won a COVID World Series. Like in a short, that's all they have to show for it. So the Dodgers are, you can't put too much stock into them. The Braves are the team that scare you. And granted, you wiped the floor with them last year at Citizens Bank Park. That was great. It was awesome to see. I think that the Phillies showed, even though losing the series to Atlanta, that they had the bats to compete with them. But right now, it just feels like Atlanta has a little too much steam. We'll see what happens. Obviously, Acuna got hurt. I don't know. Was he back in the lineup yesterday? I don't know what the deal is with him moving forward. But, yeah, we'll see, man. All I would say is that the Phillies can play with anybody.
It kind of
Will they get back to the World Series? I don't know. But they can compete with anybody in the National League.
It feels like the Phillies' toughest opponent is themselves, man. It really feels like that.
It's a fair point, man. I mean, look at how many comebacks and big time home runs they've hit in the 7th, 8th, 9th inning over the last 3 or 4 weeks, and how many of those games they've lost.
If they play to their potential, Dylan, like I feel like they can take down any of those teams you just mentioned. But it's because it's the Phillies. That's why.
Yeah, we'll see.
Where's fun. So real quick, this early week series against the Braves, right? You got 3 against them before the Mets this weekend. Mm-hmm. Give us a little bit of a prediction. What do you think they do in this series? What are you trying to look for against the Braves too, man?
I'm looking for a little bit of momentum, a little bit of what I just said about like hey, we belong. Like you don't have to prove anything to the fans, man. You don't have to prove anything to the rest of the league, but prove it to yourself a little bit and get that momentum. Like you lost the series at home. Yeah, the Braves have already clinched the NL East, but they haven't rested anybody all year before Acuna got hurt. They're still going to put out their best lineup. The Phillies should have the edge in the pitching matchup. Obviously, tonight you have Wheeler versus Wright. And I believe the next 2 games that the Braves have question marks on the bump. So just kind of a show yourself that you belong and you can compete with this team and go take 2 out of 3. Because A, like I said, prove it to yourself. And then B, you don't want to keep relying on the Chicago Cubs to lose 2 of 3 or 3 out of 3. You don't want to. The Marlins just swept the shit out of the Braves. You don't want the Marlins to sweep another series and you get swept and here they come 2 games out with 10 to play or whatever. So yeah, man, just continue to build that lead in the wild card and start to turn in the right direction.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Dylan, man, appreciate you coming on as always, man. Please make sure you guys follow Dylan D98. He's here on DSM Media as well. Dylan, we'll talk soon, brother. Appreciate you,
brother. Appreciate it.
Dylan Davis checking on in. It's good. good to have Dylan in here giving us the perspective of the Birds and the Phillies. Look, with both of those teams, respectfully, obviously the Eagles were in a good spot because we're waiting and we're still early in the season, but the Phillies, it's not really feeling too comfortable. And now with our third team that we're about to talk about, the third team that we're about to talk about here are, of course, our soccer team, the Philadelphia Union. For me personally, I'm somewhere in between, but our next guest is going to give us all the breakdown as well. So please welcome from across the pitch, friend here of Citywide Special, Don Jose Nunez. Jose,
Hey,
what's going on, brother? How you feeling,
not
man?
much. I'm so glad we could make it work. Obviously, I don't do this full time, neither do you. So to find and carve out some time midday can be a little difficult, but I'm so glad we were able to sort it out.
Dude, we're extremely grateful, man, to have your presence here. Jose, I just want to dive right into this, man. So obviously a 2-2 draw against Cincinnati. The Union, however, do blow the lead, so it feels a little bit like a defeat here. But give us your perspective. You were down there in Chester, from my understanding. You were in Chester, right, for the match?
I was. And I think the way that you can summarize it's really just as simple as a tale of two halves, right? Where you had a very dominant half by Philadelphia, controlling a lot of the play and getting some passes, key passes in, benefiting from a penalty kick. Obviously, Gazdag, very, very good on the spot.
Yeah.
A Brujo Martinez goal that he continues to shoot from afar, and I don't think we're going to be too upset if they continue to go the way that they have been and in the style that they have been. But all in all, again, a tale of two halves, right? You have the second half where Pat Nunez, no stranger to Philadelphia, obviously assistant coach to Jim for a few years, and Chris Albright, again, a mastermind in terms of being a GM, and obviously we've gotten Ernst Tanner bringing on, and Jim mentioned it during the post-game press conference, an $8 million player came in at the second half and played $8 million soccer with Bupsenda, I think it's how you say his name, young guy from he represents Gabon internationally, played in Qatar last
Still trying to get
couple
his name
years.
down as well.
Yeah. Came in and honestly changed the game. He came in for, again, another Union face that we recognize, and that is Sergio Santos. So came in and just completely flipped the game on its head. And, within the first 3 minutes, the Union giving one up, which is, something we've seen before. You don't have to go that far back. It feels like a long time back, but Tijuana on the Leagues Cup, right? Tijuana came back from halftime and just shot one right at us. But I think another aspect of the game that we need to remember is just the officiating. 12 yellow cards in that match, as well as one red card. So referee was getting his work out with his arm, getting the cards out. But all in all, a very frustrating night that should have been a win with all intents and purposes.
For sure, man. Yeah, a lot of bickering, man. It's crazy because like both of these teams have slowly started. Not I wouldn't say rivals, but it's clear on the pitch it gets heated. And obviously the history between the two with Nunez and Albright and all that, it does feel like that for so. Hopefully we'll see what happens in the playoffs, but definitely it's starting to heat up here. One thing that I'm just noticing, just from talking to you and watching on Saturday, look, Ernst Tanner has knocked it out the park with player selection for this team, right? Last year, one of the biggest strengths that you don't see in this year's team is the depth. When you got Corey Burke coming off the bench, when you got Paxton Aronson, having those guys coming off the bench. Now this year, right, the main all-season acquisitions, Andres Pereira, Joaquin Torres, Damian Lowe. I mean, obviously, Pereira's not even here anymore. Joaquin Torres struggles to even find the pitch. And Lowe, he's hit kind of a wall a little bit as of late here, man. And with the amount of soccer this team has played already this year, my concern is going into the playoffs. A lot of people's concerns is the form going into playoffs right now. So my concern heading in the playoffs is, do we have enough in the tank with what we have right now to make another deep run in the playoffs? And that is where my concern lies there, Jose.
It's going to have to be. The rosters froze as of Friday evening. So there's no additions. There's nothing that can happen. Everything's set and done. And that's just the way it's got to be now. Could there be emergency additions? I'm not sure how that all works out with the MLS. It has all types of funky rules. Obviously, if that was the case, I would think that MLS playoffs 2020 or 2021, whenever that was, the COVID game would have been a lot different. But nonetheless, it's going to have to be. And you hit on something that I've been saying for a little bit, and Dave Miller and Mike Barrera with us and Across the Pitch have talked about this has been a very ineffective transfer one window. We haven't had enough time to really make up our minds on what's going on with Dai Baribo, right? He's come in 20 minutes just this past weekend and then played 20 minutes with Israel and I think 18 minutes a previous game. So very, very little body of work for us to judge him on. But when you do look at Perea and Torres and Damian Lowe, only one stands out because the other two have been complete, fumbles. Though I would argue that Perea getting a chance at New York City FC and starting just about every single game since the loan maybe is telling about maybe what we just didn't see. Maybe it was a personnel type of situation, right, where personalities didn't mix. I know for the longest time when asked about it, Jim would tell us that it was about Perea's inability to adapt to the defensive side, right? I think they had mentioned that, or Jim had mentioned that Perea was still getting caught up on the defensive side of the Philadelphia Union. Now, whether that's true or not, that's for you to judge. But to see him get key minutes in a New York City FC team that I wouldn't say is great, but it isn't awful, is really interesting and telling. And also, on a side note, it's so great to see Matt Freese finally start every single game after a long year of being on the bench. So it's nice to see that, again, the tendrils of the Philadelphia Union continue to expose themselves across the league.
Yeah, man, it's definitely good to see, and we'll see. I mean, obviously, Ernst really took advantage of the MLS market, and I don't know. I don't know if he kind of scouted it all the way through. I don't know, but it just doesn't feel like clear. This transfer market over the winter last year didn't hit as others have had, and so
one thing to remember though, JP, is that this was the very first time, at least in my understanding, one of the very few times since Tanner and shortly before him, that the Union have really done a lot of work within the league, right? Because you think about how we usually operate, right? Going to South American countries, going abroad to Europe, and finding just very specific types of players, plucking them out, plugging them into the Union, develop them, rinse, repeat, sell, profit, and continue. And that just did not happen when you look at the three players that we brought. Though you can argue that Damian Lowe we brought home after being a Reading United player for as long as he was, and going out to Egypt, being out in Miami, etc. We finally brought him home. So that one is a little different. But you think about Torres and Perea, it's just really fascinating to see where maybe this is a vote of confidence and in the Tanner way of like, no, we need to get away from this league, because if it's not working in other teams, it probably isn't going to work for us. I don't know. It's just something to think about.
I just wonder what it was though. Like, what was it that it didn't work this time around? Like, I mean, is it the player mentality? Like, I'm just curious what it's like. Because, dude, Ernst has found gems in Hungary, third division, Germany, Venezuela, and like, you find players here in the States, and it's just weird. I would love to dive deep into that one, but I guess we'll have to wait and see, man. We're have to wait for the 30 for 30.
Yeah, and we forget about Trent Holden, right? A goalkeeper that was drafted, again, one of the very few, if not almost obsolete, use of draft picks in this league, right? The Union, you often see the grades, right? Post-draft grades from folks, Matt Doyle, I think, in the MLS website, or Tom Bogert, I think he does some of them too. And the Union, they just say, it's the Union. They don't do anything in the draft. So for them to pick out this goalkeeper, apparently special, though I don't think that he has played a whole lot for the Philadelphia Union too. I know he had something with his thumb for the longest time, and being Joe Bendick's time. So interesting times for us for sure.
I mean, I'm sure you've seen him in training too. My future for him, I think, is going to be bright, man. Obviously, the first year here, learning under Blake too, and Bendick is a veteran guy, like that. That's always beneficial too. So I think like he's got the right tutelage here. I think he's got the right mindset too. But it's just going to take some time, man. It's not an easy position. It really, really isn't. And these guys last a long freaking time playing as well, man. Cincinnati, playoff time. Would you say that they're the team that would concern you the most out of every team in the East, considering, listen, some of these teams in the East have also had our number too?
I think I'm more afraid. And we played, and let's just be very clear, we played a Cincinnati team without Lucho Acosta, right? And he is a game changer, potentially the MVP for this year. So let's not get that lost in the conversation that was the 2-2 draw. I think if he plays, we absolutely lose that game by 2, maybe. Maybe we put in 2 and we lose by 2 anyways, 4-2. So let's not get that lost in the conversation. But I would say that I'm actually more nervous about playing in Columbus. Columbus has made a lot of additions. You have Wilfred Nancy, who departed a club that was in shambles out in Montreal and has really made his way into Columbus and changed that team overnight, as well as making some great additions over the past really these last couple of months really turned that team around. So Columbus scares me quite a bit, though I fear for any team because I just don't see how we get a home field advantage in any way, shape, or form. And I just have very little confidence on the Philadelphia Union going away from home to true away games. You don't count DC as an away game with how well fans show up, but to go to an Atlanta and facing them, or go to a Nashville, Montreal, Columbus, like we were saying, or even on the other side of the table, hopefully we don't fall that far down, but New England, Orlando, just very difficult away games for me to think that we win one away and one at home with this best of three format.
Yeah, man, a lot of soccer as well. This week is not going to be easy for this team as well, man. I want to talk a little bit about Kai. Obviously, you are the man that did announce that reporting there. It's funny, Jim mentioning again that whole money thing as well. Yeah, Jim's mentioned that a couple times about subs coming off the bench being worth a lot of money.
I've been reading between the lines about that quite a bit, and I actually asked him about it at a press conference. He addressed part of my question, but not all of the question. Where I asked him, it was shortly after him complaining about the field being a little and leading, apologizing to the players for it. And I asked them, Jim, you've called out or asked over the last few weeks about the facilities being what they are. Then you have your comment after Toronto that the Union don't have a player that scares the SHI. Can I swear? I don't want to swear.
Oh, you can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Scares the shit out of other. He didn't say shit, but like I read it as that scares the shit out of the
he
other.
Said
team,
it in his
right?
head.
Yeah, for the Union, it's a collective effort. Whereas Toronto, they have the two Italians and then some to really freak out teams. And now you have this comment about an $8 million player doing $8 million things. I think it's very, to me, clear as day that he is being very open about having to change what's going on here. So yeah, it really does feel like he's trying to signal something without signaling out loud. And then you have, everything going on with Kai. It's just
and Jose, it doesn't help as well that you look on the team that you just play in Cincinnati with the same mentality, some of the same teachings that you taught those guys, and they're spending the money the right way. And dude, they're first in the East. So
you have to be so happy. Dude. You have to feel very happy for Chris Albright, right? You have to think about the lack of latitude that he had to work through at one point to get us the stepping stones to then Ernst Tanner coming in. It has to be sort of commended, if not understanding, from the fandom that Chris did all he could with the resources he had, right? Maybe he didn't have the scouting eye that Ernst has in terms of, we talk about these very specific players in very specific nations, lower leagues, et cetera, that we pluck away and churn out to profit. But Chris Albright, now that he has an open wallet, I can't help but to be happy for the guy, because he's showing that if you invest wisely, you're going to get really good results. $8 million player coming from Qatar, of all places, right? Coming and changing a game in 42 minutes and getting himself, again, in 42 minutes worth of game time into the team of the week for the MLS. So really, really showed his worth.
And that's what we're saying, man. Like, you don't have to go out and spend 15 million, 20 million on a Lorenzo Insigne, like the Bernardeschi type. But yeah, man, spend over 5 mil on that player. That makes that difference. And you'd be crazy to see what happens. So you obviously, you've been behind the reporting. You heard the fans on Saturday. Just from your honest opinion, where do you think this team where do they feel about it? Where do they stand with this whole situation to pay Kai?
To be super candid with you, I received a lot of messages now that I know how to open my DMs to anybody. I received a lot of messages from other people who are reporters across the league, congratulating me for breaking those news and sort of my follow-up on it. And,
deserving, yes.
One specific individual almost literally saying, congratulations, you started the Kai Wagner sweepstakes out in public, where I'm sure multiple teams have been sort of planning, in case he doesn't sign, where is he going to go? It's, to me, fascinating to see that. I don't think the team was ready for sort of the blowback, right? To see, and I'm so glad it didn't happen. There was that one post about the young girl with Kai in terms of being one of the fearless 43, right? Having survived her battle with cancer. I'm surprised it didn't happen on that post, but every other post that you would see from the team, it was littered with people saying pay Kai, pay Kai, pay Kai. So I commend the fandom for holding back and realizing, you know, there's bigger things than just players. But I don't think the team was really prepared for everything that came out of it. Maybe I'm wrong, and I don't know. But it's also interesting to see. I wasn't invited and would not have been able to go, but you know, Ernst Tanner taking it upon himself to call in or get together with the big three in terms of the media coverage and sort of having a round table about, you know, Kai's situation, not wanting to, as the way I read it, not wanting to set the standard for the position in terms of pay, but also not wanting to disrupt the wage structure that the team has, right? Additionally, being very clear that Kai did not tell the full story, did mention me by name, but obviously Kai did not tell me the full story, and there was more to it in terms of having some negotiation, and ultimately Kai and Wasserman, who are his agents, not really being willing to negotiate after a couple of attempts. And then finally, the one quote that was really, really interesting to me was, you know, this is a position that doesn't pay top dollar. So maybe he, meaning Kai, has to not be looking over to the other side and think that things are greener. Maybe things are just good enough here. So just a really, really fascinating situation that's unfolding, and this weekend didn't help much. You know, again, negotiating through us in the media, and in terms of, I don't know if you saw the audio bit I posted, but you know, just Kai saying, I'm not asking for a lot. And frankly, I think that the fandom and the club deserve better by investing in players like me. And I'm paraphrasing, but that's really what it boils down to. So Kai, I think, is done talking about it. I'm intrigued. I'm going to make the trip out to New England to watch him out in Foxborough, and right before the playoffs. So I'm going to ask him one last time while I'm there, you know, going into the playoffs, what his situation is. But for now, I think we just honestly sit down and wait. And I have thoughts onto what the magic number is, but I wonder what it actually is.
Dude, yeah, and obviously money does talk, but I mean it's an interesting situation, and obviously, you know, for a lot of Union fans, Kai is a legend, and Kai is definitely a legend. We're talking about one of the best defenders, best fullback in Union history. So it is truly interesting. So real quick before we let you go here, we're going to talk about Charlotte more tomorrow, but after Cincinnati, heading into Charlotte, a hectic week, a hectic stretch here of matches. What are you looking for this team to do in Charlotte on Wednesday night?
It's a tough place to play.
You found that out last year.
It's a very difficult place to play out in Charlotte. If you remember last year, they spanked us 4-1, I think.
Daniel Rios,
and the reason I remember that match specifically is because I was building baby furniture before my second child came in with the game in the background.
Did you bring the furniture after?
I was just very like, all right, well, I guess this is how it's gonna go, and just continue to build. And you know, Charlotte goal. It's just like, oh my God, all right, let's settle down. But I think, you know, I've always said this to Dave and Mike, but tie away, run at home. That's the way you win championships in most leagues, or you climb, I guess, here in the MLS, you win the Supporter Shield, right? Take care of your home games and tie or sneak away with a win on some games away from home, and you'll easily find yourself at the very, very top, if not very, very close. Though I guess what I really want to see from this team is a little bit of grit, right? Coughing up a 2-goal lead at home, where that typically doesn't happen. And Todd Lewis, credit to him, I think he found out that this is the first time since 2018 that the Union have given up a 2-goal lead to not ultimately win the match. So I guess I just really want some more consistency, right? Seeing them figure it out, fast start, both halves. We're so susceptible to conceding the first 15 minutes, and obviously very susceptible to conceding within the first 5 of the second half. So it'll be really interesting, though. I would argue that this is a year where if things continue to go the way they are, or I guess you could say they need to get back. But with Miami losing this weekend, the possibility of them making the playoffs gets a lot bleaker for them.
Yeah.
But I don't think that this is a year where you want to find yourself as a number 1. Never mind being the 2 wild card teams, the 8 and 9 facing each other. Because I don't know that you want to face Miami with Messi, Busquets, and Jordi Alba in the play-in game. No. Never mind being Cincinnati and having to find them on a best of 3. So really, really interesting I guess, pieces to consider where maybe being a number 2 or a number 3 isn't such a bad thing this year.
Dude, the MLS is rapidly changing, man, and you got to keep up with it, man. You got to keep up with these teams, man. Jose, dude, it's truly a pleasure and honor having you back in here, man. We'll definitely try to have you on here more often, man. But, dude, thank you so much again, and you enjoy the rest of your day. We'll talk some more.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You as well, man. Ladies and gentlemen, Jose Nunez. Make sure you guys are following him, and of course, everyone else across the pitch. Jose's doing a fantastic job reporting, like we talked about with the Kai Wagner stuff. But really good insight from Jose, obviously with the Cincinnati match. And I mean, yeah, for me personally, like, there's a lot of stuff that you don't usually see. Like Jose mentioned, the first time that this team blew a lead after being up 2-0 at halftime, blowing it, and not walking away with 3 points. They did walk away with a point, but that's just stuff that we haven't been used to in this iteration of Union Soccer since Ernst and Jim have brought this team to where it is now. But yeah, I mean, depth. That's really the main thing that does concern me, because of the fact that this team last year, they could really boast about that depth. And this year, it's just not there. You see what Abu Pensak being able to come off for Cincinnati. It's a guy who can put a ball away in goal. And that's, right now, obviously Taibo Arribo, he's trying to get in form, trying to get acclimated with this team. But Donovan and Quinn Sullivan weren't able to do that. And you really didn't have anyone else coming off the bench to put away goals. And so that's definitely the bit of a concern. A lot of soccer is being played, and these guys have to dig deeper than before. Can they do that? It's a lot of question marks. And they have to find a way to get in form as we gear towards the end of the season. It's a lot of questions. This team has gone through more adversity than ever before that we've ever witnessed here. And we're going to learn a lot about this team. The East as well is not easy. Cincinnati, obviously, clearly the best team in the MLS, let alone the Eastern Conference. New England, still a good team, even with all their drama. We'll see how much longer they'll be hanging around. Orlando City, still a really solid team under Oscar Pareja. Atlanta, Columbus, good teams behind you. So for the Union, eyes on the prize, and that's the playoffs, and we'll see. And obviously now you get the Kai Wagner stuff. That may have been a little bit of drama in that dressing room, and so on and so forth. So we'll see a lot of uncharacteristic play as well. Backline hasn't played completely well throughout the season. So we'll have to wait and see here, man. But real quick on the Flyers. I mean, I don't know much about the Flyers, but we did have development camp over the weekend, so it's kind of cool to see. I did think they did lose to the Rangers in the series with the rookies. So we're gearing. So it's September. October is going to be right around the corner. So we're going to be right into Sixers and Flyers season. So we'll try to integrate those teams in here. And it's obviously going to be really busy because you got the Union and the Phillies gearing up for their playoff runs again. The Birds, they're underway. And then we'll have the Flyers and the Sixers going off as well. Tomorrow, we will look more into the Union because they play Wednesday in Charlotte against Charlotte FC. So we'll look at that matchup, and of course we'll talk some more with some guests as well. But guys, that does it for today's edition of Citywide Special. We'll have a poll for tomorrow as well. I apologize for not having one. I promise we'll have a poll tomorrow. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Make sure you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Tomorrow, reminder: tomorrow's pod might be a little later. We have to go into the office tomorrow. Yes, we do have a day job, so that means this pod will get pushed back a little bit later. Look around 6 o'clock. We'll have the pod, that pod live. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Hit that like button. I really appreciate it. If you guys enjoyed today, make sure you guys hit that like button. Subscribe for more. We're available wherever you stream podcasts as well. Find us under Citywide Special. Good stuff, guys. Until next time, I go by the name El Parcero Philly, and we're telling you guys, enjoy the rest of your day.